Leeds, Leeds, Leeds. What is happening? Welcome to Working Hours, a show about a place called Leeds, a time called now, and an activity called work. Working Hours wants to record 1,000 loiners over the course of this, the most important decade in the history of the human species, and ask them what they do all day and hear how they feel about it. My name is Simon, and this is all my fault. What did you want to be when you grew up?
There were a couple of things really. I started off wanting to be a vet because I really like animals, and I live with quite a few animals now. So a vet was the first thing, but funnily enough, I didn't really like the sort of school environment. I didn't enjoy high school, didn't enjoy college, and you need a lot of qualification. There's a lot of study involved in being a vet. It's seven, it's a lot of years of study. So I put that to one side. Then I wanted to be an actor, which hasn't worked out.
How did you stay on that then? Did you perform?
No, I did. I really, to be honest, one of the subjects I did enjoy at high school was drama, but I didn't stick with it. I missed a lot of school time around like GCSE time, so I just did like the core subjects. So that dream was derailed. But yeah, it was a vet first, then it moved to an actor. So that's what I wanted to be. Yeah.
You're listening to Series 3, Episode 11, and to my guest, Elliot Benson. This is another Zoom interview recorded on the 4th of May, 2022. Good evening, colleagues. Elliot Benson is a mortgage broker and owns a small business based in Headingley called Sett Mortgages, which he has been running since September last year. Before starting Sett Mortgages, Elliot had worked in a large corporate estate agent as a broker for 4 years, and prior to that worked as an estate agent. While working as an estate agent, Elliot was shortlisted for the 2020 British Mortgage Awards, the Oscars of the mortgage world, in the Rising Star category, and finished in the final 3. Sett Mortgages works predominantly with first-time buyers, helping them onto the property ladder and through the whole buying process. And Elliot has experience in all types of mortgage. To find out more about Sett Mortgages, go to settmortgages.co.uk. Like, share, follow, and subscribe to this podcast. I'm doing all I can to bring this to you. So if you do like anything about it, please follow and promote the show on and off social, wherever you can, whenever you remember. Please give money to this show, and please give me any feedback, questions, or comments that you may have. Email workinghourspod@western-studios.com or use one of my social channels to get in touch. The address for each of those channels will be at the end of the show. Now, please enjoy this totally free and totally ad-free, as far as I know, episode of Working Hours with Elliot Benson from Sett Mortgages. So what is it that you do now then?
I'm a mortgage broker.
Okay, it's slightly different.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, what a change. Or mortgage advisor, I could be called either way.
So how did you get into that? And how did you get into it?
Yeah, it's quite a long story actually. I got into mortgage advice via estate agency because I was an estate agent for about 4 years, and I actually got into that through my second ever full-time job, which was at Costa Coffee as a barista. And I served an estate agent one day, and I knew he was an estate agent, so that they've got the reputation of being, all salesy and that kind of thing. So he wanted a praline latte. So I started describing it in a really extravagant fashion. Like, oh, it's a beautiful latte. It'll transport you to, a log cabin on a winter's day, blah, blah, blah. And he invited me for an interview to be an estate agent. And I got offered a job, not at because there was a branch next to the Costa where I worked, but I got offered a job at the a different branch within the same sort of locale in Horsforth, actually. And that's how I got into estate agency. So I spent about 4 years doing that, and pretty much every estate agent that you speak to will have an in-house mortgage advisor. And it was something that I was quite interested in because I enjoy dealing with people, and it's a very people-centric business. It's all relationship building and that kind of thing. And they put me through the exams to do that. So I studied while I was still working as an estate agent, and then qualified and started advising out of the company that I used to work for, basically.
Cool. And then now you're in business for yourself?
That's right, yeah. So I set up independently as an advisor last September, which is completely different to what I was used to before. I mean, the general sort of advice and things like that is the same. It's just the way sort of work life is balanced is a lot different now. Yeah.
Now you're purely responsible. I mean, are you at the point where you have staff, or is it just you on your own?
No, I have thought about taking on, because the kind of role that I do as an advisor is that there's a lot of administration involved, a lot of admin, a lot of sort of chasing various sort of parts of the buying process. And I did think about taking on an administrator just to help me with, maybe part-time to help me with that side of it. But with the sort of volume that I'm dealing with at the moment, it's I can still keep on top of it myself. And I quite like being involved in, I like knowing where all my cases are and, what my clients are doing and things like that. So at the moment, it's just myself. Yeah.
Cool. So how's it been going? Is it going well, or is it been
really well? Yeah.
Yeah.
It's very, I mean, like I started in September, and everyone tells you that, starting a business, the first 6 months are really difficult and that kind of thing. And it is really hard because, you do everything is yourself, you do everything yourself. It's not just mortgage advice that you do, but you're marketing, your own marketing department, and, you're your own sort of voice in the industry, in effect, because you're not part of, a large firm. It's just you, and you are your own brand, etc. So it's difficult. But business wise, it's been really, really good actually since starting. A lot busier than I thought it would be, which is nice. And it is a busy sort of time for the property market in general at the moment. There are a lot of people are looking to buy. So it's been quite good business wise. But starting a business and going from a secure environment to something else is quite stressful. So on the one hand, stressful with being completely out of sort of employment in effect, but on the other hand, business wise, it's been good. Yeah.
So you managing to pay yourself, you managing to, like, have you broke even? I mean, I would imagine the setup costs are pretty low for that kind of thing.
Yeah, that's right. It was probably the sort of way it works is because you don't really draw, as an advisor, I don't get paid unless the client completes and moves in. So there's a delay between seeing a client for an appointment and then receiving any income. It has to go through to completion. So I'm invested in trying to make sure that the client does move in, everything runs smoothly. But again, there's like sometimes a 3, 4, 5 month delay between that and getting income. But because I was quite lucky in that I was able to, draw clients from when I set up, it allowed me to draw an income faster. There's always a period where you don't make anything, but from the start of the year, I was starting to draw an income from it, and it was enough to, sort of break even, etc. So yeah, it's drawing money now, which is good.
So what was the sort of spark that drove you to set up for yourself?
It was really strange actually. Like I had no I hadn't thought about it to any sort of great extent until the last year that I was working for a corporate, and the workload that I was dealing with was immense. It was, I was doing I was doing sometimes like 14+ hour days in the office, and I was working every single day. I had no sort of work-life balance, and it seemed like there was no sort of way out of that environment, because there's that feeling of like, once you've sort of worked to that level, it sort of becomes, people expect you to do that all the time.
Yeah.
And I remember sort of waking up and thinking, this isn't like sustainable. I can't work every single day of my life, like without a break, and 14 hours forever. So it was really sort of spur of the moment. I woke up one morning, I just thought the only way to sort of stop this pattern is to just take myself out of it. So I actually left the place I used to work in June last year, or it was the end of June, I believe, and I went to go work in a bar for a little bit, because I just wanted to sort of take myself out of it. And
just burnt out, and
well, that was it basically. I think that was it. And it was just I just thought as long as I'm still there, there'll always be that expectation of, that I'll need to perform at that level. And it's just not sustainable having like no life out.
Yeah, no life, no sleep, no the way out.
That's it. Yeah. Yeah. I was just existing on energy drinks.
Yeah.
So and then I still had like I just get random texts all the time from, numbers that I don't know, like, oh, are you doing mortgages, etc., etc. And I was turning people away and saying, no, I'm sorry, I'm not, I don't do that anymore. And I thought, well, why don't I just, do it for myself? Because friends and family were contacting me, and, they were asking if I was still doing it. And I thought, well, I can still advise, I was good at what I was doing. Why don't I just do it for myself? And then I'm in control of, what I want to do. There's no pressure to have to, spend my whole, all the time doing that and not having any, I've got a lot more control over it. So that's what sort of made me do it, really.
Was the sort of the why of why the hell am I doing this? And it's like, well, if it's me being, using my own expertise, which I've gained from being in this industry for X amount of years, then that's much better for me. Because like I actually feel value from it. I'm putting stuff that I've learned into use that people can benefit from, and I can get paid. Bonus.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
I want to go into the juice of it then. So what the hell does a mortgage broker do?
So essentially, I think of myself as basically like a personal assistant for anything to do with someone's buying process. So the core of it is that if someone is looking to buy a house, I'll have a chat with them. I'll tell them exactly what they can afford, what the payments will look like, who the right lender is for them, who the cheapest deal is for them. So if you were looking to buy, you had an offer accepted, you come and see me, I'll tell you which bank out of all of them is the cheapest one and which one will lend to you. And then I just do everything for you. So your involvement really is little to none at all with the bank. You just come see me and I just do everything for you. Don't worry about it. You probably, if there would be no evidence that a mortgage to the client, there'd be no evidence that a mortgage application was ongoing, apart from me asking them for documents, really, and that's it. Except the way that I tend to work is because I predominantly deal with first-time buyers. That's the sort of kind of clients that I enjoy dealing with. Because I was an estate agent, it's easy for me to guide people through the buying process because I've dealt with it all before. And when you're buying your first house, it's scary and you don't know what's happening. And I think of myself as just, someone to hold their hand through the process. So if they need help with, finding a property, offering on a property, I can have a look at the house for them and sort of say to them, well, look, it's on for this kind of price. Maybe you should offer this amount. This sounds like a good idea. This is how you offer. This is how you put an offer forward. And then from that point, if they need anything through the process, like if, the estate agent is asking them for documents, they don't know what it means, or there's terminology that the solicitor's using that they don't quite understand, I'm just on hand to help them with that. So the mortgage process really is probably only a small part of it for me, because I could package a case, which is, where you send the application off to the lender. I can do that fairly quickly, but it's about being there for the client through the process. So that's essentially the core of it. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, like, you almost suggested there that you could kind of like just have an app or a web page and just be like, I want this, find this, go.
Yeah.
But, it's like you say, it's like, well, you're providing that service of being there for the client, and
that's it. Yeah. I think that's important because, like I said, it's a very sort of personal, it's a person business. Like you develop relationships with clients that, you want them to last. But like for example, if I take on a new client now, yes, I want to do the mortgage for them this time, but I'd want to work with that client, when they come back in a few years' time and they want to move again, they want to remortgage, like, you get to know each other, and it's nice having that kind of, relationship with sort of clients that you deal with in your day-to-day sort of working life. It's just, it's nice.
So how do they sort of come in? How do you kind of, what's your kind of customer funnel? Are you getting them from estate agents, or do they come in to you directly? Like,
Yeah.
where do people come from?
So I mainly, I deal predominantly with just the Leeds area because I know the Leeds market and I know, the areas and things like that. It's a lot more, I'm more helpful to a client who is buying in Leeds. I can still help clients who want to buy in other areas. It's just I know the Leeds market better. Predominantly, the way that I would get to a client is, well, first of all, the website. I think I spent a lot of time with the website just because, everything people do now is, it's
online.
If you're looking for advice, you're just going to Google Leeds mortgage brokers. So the website's really important. Social media as well is what I focus on a lot because the kind of clients that I like working with, that I deal with a lot, are going to be on Instagram, Facebook, things like that. So I do a lot of videos where I just sort of go through tips on buying, the mortgage process, things like that. I do Q&As just to help people who are thinking about buying, but also to raise sort of brand awareness as well. Because I think social media is really important, an important tool when you are starting a business, because it's a good way of getting the word out. Because Google and the website, yes, I do. On the website itself, you can book straight into my diary. So if you go on there, you can find out about me. You can book straight in the diary. But I think because it's such a person-to-person business, I think the social media is more important, simply because when you're dealing with something like a mortgage, it's one of the biggest financial decisions you're going to make. You want to trust the person, and you want to know that the person knows what they're talking about. And that's what I try and put across in the video. So I get a lot through social media, and I get a lot through the website. I get the bulk of the referrals that I get are word of mouth. So I'll just get a random text like, "Oh, you did a mortgage for my friend. Are you able to help me?" Or I'll get a text out of the blue, or a call out of the blue, just saying, "I found a house and can you help me with it?" So that kind of thing, really. I put a lot of effort into the website and the social media side of things, simply because I think it's good for the client to sort of know you a little bit before they book in, because then, they know that with something like a mortgage, they know that you know what you're talking about, and you're not, some like cowboy, but yeah.
So the social proof aspect of being online,
it's just just I think it's important for people to know when you're dealing with finances, that they can trust you, and you know what you're talking about in that sort of sense.
Do you have to be regulated? Do you like?
Yeah. So you have to be authorized by the FCA. So you do what's called a fitness and propriety. It's like a checklist every year, just to make sure you're not under investigation for anything, or you've got no sort of criminal record, and that your own sort of credit and finances are in order and things like that. So you do that every year. Compliance
cost?
No, it's just it's just a little checklist at this end. And there's continuing professional development that you do. So I'll do an exam like every quarter. It's not like a sit down full hour long exam. It's just like there'll be a chosen subject, which could be, for example, this quarter was something called conduct risk, which is all about how you can, as a business, make sure that the client is at the heart of what you're doing. So you're not doing anything that's going to put the client at a disadvantage, etc. So you do that every quarter. There's also webinars with various lenders and things that'll go through criteria to make sure so what you're doing. But everything is regulated, and every quarter, and one of the cases that I do will be checked to make sure it's compliant and there's no mistakes and things like that. So there's still a regulatory framework around everything that you do, basically.
So what's the market like for you, and what's the sort of like the sort of peer, I suppose, the B2B level of like, is it sort of industry where it's kind of like share a lot of tips and information and there's a lot of support, or is it very like, no, we've all got to get the client?
I think when you're a large corporate, it's a lot more of the sort of, because we used to have a WhatsApp group where if you had a complex case, you could just say, look, does anyone know which lender might be able to help with this? Because some cases are quite, you don't always get clear cases where it's like, oh yeah, we can just place that with, the cheapest lender, whoever that is. Sometimes you have to do a lot of research, which is fine. But when you're on your own, everything that you do is, there's no one else in the industry that is going to help you, because they just won't. There's no one that you could sort of go to and say, oh, could you, unless you were friendly with another mortgage advisor, you could, give him the outline of the case and say, what do you think to this? But generally all the sort of research and things like that you do is your own self. But you do get visited by business development managers from the lenders, and they go through criteria and things like that with you. What I'd usually do is if I got a case that was quite complex and I wasn't sure about where I could place it, I have access to, first of all, a list of, it's like a searchable list of criteria for the lenders, where you type in the details and it'll bring up a list of who will do it. And then if it's, you need to be more specific than that, I'll just call one of the BDMs for the banks, the development managers directly, and talk it through with them and just see if it'll fit. Because some cases, although I don't have co-workers, etc., to run things by, that there is support from lenders themselves in trying to make sure that you can place the client if it would work.
Yeah, good level of detail here. I'm enjoying the level of detail. It's good.
Oh, good. I'm not boring you.
No. Well, this is the thing. It's the nitty gritty stuff's the interesting stuff, I think.
Good.
Especially if anyone's interested in sort of going into the field, it's kind of like,
oh yeah.
It's like a free workshop with someone already in the industry. So I'll start then with my change question, which will be a strange question for you, because you kind of are in the position where you can kind of change most things because you've just set up for yourself. But the question is basically, if there were any 3 things that you could change about your work right now, what would you change?
Oh, interesting. I think one of the things would be, I think sometimes with when you've got a sort of a complex case in front of you, I think sometimes certain sort of lender criteria can be more sort of black and white. I think there should be more common sense approach to people's cases. I think at the moment that's not going to happen because we've just come out of, a series of lockdowns and things are still quite restrictive. But I think sometimes I feel like the first thing I would change is that there should just be a bit more of a sort of flexible approach to, or maybe a more bespoke approach to clients' cases when they are sort of out of the norm. So maybe a bit more flexibility and things like that.
Yeah, so sort of less rigid. Like obviously you need a rigid criteria because of regulations and so on, and the level of cash being spent.
Yeah.
But there are always going to be people who don't fit into the flow chart. So
that's it.
What do we do with them? There needs to be better options.
Yeah, I think that'd be the first one. Maybe a more bespoke approach to certain cases. Just the ones where you think, that it's so close to being able to do it, and you want to help someone, but you can't just because it's just slightly out of the norm. So I think that would be one thing. I think the second thing would probably be, I'd like to see, I can't influence this directly, but I'd like to see a greater choice of products. I think at lower loan to value. So people who are wanting to buy with, 5% deposit, or even a 10%, maybe more of a sort of choice, because there's still a greater choice now than there was, a couple of years ago after we came out of we went into the first lockdown. But I think I'd like to see more of a choice, just because I think it's a lot of people want to buy. They want to be able to buy. It's a big thing for a lot of people, and some people can only or they are only able to, for whatever reason, whether it's sort of financially or otherwise, they can only get to the 5%. I think it would be good to have more options for people wanting to buy with 5%, because you can go down the sort of help to buy route with new builds. But I think, on secondhand properties, I think it can be quite difficult especially if you are buying with a 5% deposit and your case is already quite complex. So I think maybe more product choice would be the second thing. I think that'd be quite helpful. The final thing I think would probably be I'd like to see a bit more, because sometimes I deal with clients who have had maybe adverse credit in the past. So maybe when they were younger, had like a default or a CCJ, or something like that.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's not, sometimes it can be like maybe like a parking ticket that they didn't think they needed to pay.
Yeah.
And it's turned into from years ago, that's turned into a default.
Yeah, and especially when you move around a lot when you're young. And it went to this house. I never heard about it.
That's it.
Suddenly 12 years later. Yeah.
12 years later, you can't get a mortgage, or you're restricted massively with which lenders you can go with. I think more of a choice on sort of mainstream products, and by that I mean sort of your high street lenders for clients who maybe have adverse that's not like not continuing and sort of repetitive, but as is the case you've just gone through. Like, for example, I do deal with people sometimes who have moved addresses quite a lot, like at uni and things like that, and a missed letter or a missed payment on a bill has come back to bite them years and years later, and they don't even realize it. So maybe actually, as opposed to an actual change with lenders, maybe it's something that could be changed with them, the actual the way that we get notified about credit issues. Because if you're not a member of like a credit reference agency, you've just got no clue until you try and get credit that something's actually happened. If that's the case where you've just not received a letter, so maybe something to do with that would be good, because I think that would help a lot of people. Because a lot of people, that have things like that, their immediate sort of responses are they clear it straight away, but by then it's too late because it's already on there. So if they find out about it sooner, you get rid of it and it's not an issue. So maybe a better way of finding if there are issues on your credit file when it actually happens, as opposed to years later, would be helpful.
A lot of people as well would use a broker if they're if it's not just a straightforward sort of through their bank, and it's kind of like, well, for example, like the past sort of 2015 to 2020, I was temping, and it's like, well, you're not going to get a mortgage while you're temping. So, but right. I mean, if I was, and maybe I'd saved up a deposit or whatever, then I probably would have had to come down the broker route, wouldn't I?
Yeah, that's it. Because there's also a certain sort of people will generally, first port of call, if they're looking to buy, they will go to the lender directly. But criteria between banks varies quite a lot. So some people, I've posted about this recently actually, some people will go to their bank first. The bank will say to them, maybe there's something, criteria wise they won't do, they'll decline them, say we can't do it. And then that'll be it. That person will then go away and think, well, I can't get a mortgage, like, my lender has said so. But actually, because criteria does vary from lender to lender, it is always worth sitting with a broker, because there might be a bank that will do it. There's like, there's a lot of banks in the UK. It's just worth a chat at least, because criteria does vary from bank to bank. It's not all the same.
Do you have to use banks? Like, can you use building societies as well?
Banks, building societies, sometimes
there's some independents as well, isn't there? Some independent mortgage houses.
There's banks, building societies, there's sort of more specialist lending outfits that I'd mainly use for like specialist buy-to-let case, like holiday lets and things like that. There's also new lenders that I've just started. There's a couple of new lenders that I've started quite recently. One of which I've discussed cases with quite a lot, and they're basically a lender sort of built for first-time buyers. So there's more sort of lending outfits, alongside just a traditional sort of bank and building society.
I want to take us back a little bit now. I want to sort of talk about your work-life balance. So from working 14-hour days, I mean, I assume you started probably about 8:39 this morning, maybe.
Yeah.
And you would have finished around 5, and now you're doing a potentially 2-hour interview.
That's correct. What I think it feels a lot different because I think I probably, into the business itself, I put a lot of hours, like, day to day. But the difference is it's a choice now. Whereas before it was, right, you have to be there at this time, you have to work till this time. Whereas now I'm starting to learn to, and I think it is like a learning thing, like, because I feel guilty when I don't. I now feel guilty when I don't, like, when I'm not doing work, because it's been sort of ingrained in me that I should be working all the time. So I feel so, like, on a Sunday, for example, if it's like it's the 3 or 4 o'clock, sometimes I'll get like a a shiver down my spine. I'll think like, oh, I should be doing some work, or this kind of thing. But and it's just about sort of trying to teach myself, that it's okay to sort of back off it. So I'd say my working hours now are, there still be quite a lot, but
less. Are you actually doing less? Yeah.
It would nowhere near what I was doing before. It's as I said, it's a choice now, and I can decide to do that appointment or try and schedule it for another day. I can decide to do that work now, or actually, can that work wait until tomorrow? And sort of make sure that I'm not constantly, in the office environment
doing nothing but work.
I mean, I've always, even when I worked at Costa Coffee, I've had I've worked a lot. I always tried to take on extra shifts and things like that, but it wasn't until the sort of last year at the place that I was at where it really got like out of hand. I do like to put the hours in if necessary, but I'm learning to balance that now. Like, for example, if I was to work quite late one day, I would now give myself time off the next day and maybe not start until the afternoon, or go for a walk, or go to the gym through the day. Whereas before, that would have been it would have been unheard of. Like, I would have worked, if I'd have worked late one night, I would have still come in at the same time the next day. I would have worked till late. I would have gone to the gym at midnight, 1 a.m. to like whenever I got out of the office, basically. So it's a lot different now, which is good, and I'm able to fit in things that I want to do as well, like because my diary is under my own control. I can now plan things for myself as well, which is nice, whereas I would never have done that before. Definitely.
So, but I mean, you said you were already doing like quite a few hours when you were the barrister. Easter. So, I mean, what do you think that drove that? Was it just money? Was it money pressures? Just like you wanted to make as much as possible, or was it just like, what else am I going to do?
I think at the time it sort of was just like, a part of me was like, well, it's something to do like through the day. To be honest, I really enjoyed, I enjoyed the job. I enjoyed, interacting with the customers and things like that. So I liked being there. There was a nice team around. It was nice to go in and, have regulars that would come in and that kind of thing. So it was quite it wasn't I mean, the job was difficult because it was really busy, but it wasn't, like really intense. I didn't finish it and think, I don't think I can ever go back there. It wasn't that kind of sort of stress. So I think I enjoyed it, and I liked spending time there because, the regulars and things like that. But again, I think I always have this, like, I don't know, sort of, I tend to take whatever I'm doing quite personally. Like, I like to make sure that, if there's an issue, I can sort it out and things like that. So maybe that's part of the reason, but I did enjoy being there quite a lot.
I mean, do you think you could have done anything? Do you think you would apply that sort of seriousness to sort of anything? Like I mean, like you said, it was just some guy who was like, come and be an estate agent. Like that's like a, it's like a hero's journey sort of, here take the call to action.
I guess it could have been. I guess it could have been. There was I'd never thought about any estate agent before that. Never ever. It was just like, well, I've been at Costa for a couple of years. I don't really know what else to do. I had no other plans. So I thought, well, why not? I'll give it a go. and it's not like selling sunset.
Okay, so I'm going to go back to some of the questions. So I want to go back to lockdown. So take us through sort of your experience of lockdown. Was it like sort of the initially going into it, like how organized was that? Was it just utter chaos and then you didn't know what to do?
Well,
did you end up working like loads more hours, or did you work less, or how did it go?
Well, it was really strange for me because we were starting to do appointments remotely.
Mm-hmm.
So we started to do the build up to the first lockdown. I still worked at the company I used to work at this point, and we started doing things remotely, and there were sort of processes rolled out for how to do that, compliantly and things like that. And then at the end of when it was actually announced, it was like, right, well, everyone's staying at home, do everything remotely. And I still carried on sort of as normal from home because I had quite a large client base. I still had things to do, day to day. I had a work laptop as well. So I just moved my things home and just carried on doing what I was doing. Then there was you could still, I think, view houses for a little bit. You could still view houses for a bit and you could still exchange and complete. But I think they stopped that, didn't they? You could only if you already were buying a house, you could move, but you couldn't do anything other than that. So eventually pretty much straight away, actually, I remember it was quite abrupt. Like within the first sort of week or so, the appointments that I was doing just cut out completely. Like I was seeing maybe at least 15 appointments per week, through that period. And then from the first lockdown, it just died. That was it. And that was weird for me because I wasn't used to doing no
doesn't happen.
Yeah, no, it was really, really strange. So I was just I did a lot of admin work, caught up and everything. And then the people in my sort of team, we all started gradually getting put on furlough. So I think I lasted maybe like a month or so just working through, making sure that my existing client base were okay. And then that was it. One day I just got told, oh, you're going to be furloughed from Friday, and just make sure everything is in order before you go. And that was it, basically.
Was there any worry about losing your job at that point? It's like, well, what's going to happen? I mean, before the decision was made,
I didn't really think about it.
You're too busy thinking about what?
Yeah,
the huge change in circumstance.
I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do now. No, I didn't think about it at the time. Because it was quite, it was a very, very big company. I wasn't concerned that I always assumed that they would be in some way prepared for something along, because obviously it had been leading up to something. I just assumed they would be prepared for it. And with furlough, I didn't think that it was a risk that people might start to lose their jobs. Because they hadn't mentioned anything about that. They were always through it, sort of assuring us that because of the the preparations and the furlough, everything would be okay. So it didn't cross my mind, to be honest. I think I was more sort of concerned about, I think at the forefront of my mind was more about like how much life had changed like overnight. Because I found that quite stressful because I have quite like, I like my sort of day-to-day routine, and it was a massive shock, not going from that to that. But I I didn't think at that point that it would come to, job losses and things. But that was just simply because we were told all the way through, not to worry, and that we'd be on furlough and then eventually we'd be back when lockdown started to withdraw. I think part of it was being in property, because they'd kept the property market going for so long. It didn't seem as though we were as at risk because there was still transactions going through. Yeah, so at the time I wasn't thinking about it really.
Did they start laying people off then later? Did it?
In the end, no. They never did. I think the thing with property is that you or why you look at everything sort of 3 months in advance. So when you sell a property, for example, you don't get paid on that for 3 months. So you've always got, so even through lockdown, etc., there was still, transactions going through. So even though there was no new business sort of going in, which technically there was, because there were still people that needed to remortgage.
Yeah.
So there were still remortgages happening. There was still an income coming in.
Yeah.
They didn't in the end need to, I don't think anyone was sort of let go in the end. People were furloughed for longer than others depending on the role, but no one was let go from the company that I was at.
Yeah. So sort of going back into the office, I mean, the other side of that question is, I mean, like, has it changed any of your work sort of permanently? I mean, did it result in you being more sort of online remote working, or like has it had any long-term effect for you?
Yeah, even now, 80% of the appointments that I'll do will be remote.
Yeah.
And that's out of client choice. I always say to the client, like, would you prefer to meet face to face, or would you prefer remote? And 80% of the time, I'd like a telephone appointment, or I'd prefer just doing that, or Zoom, or whichever, as opposed to actually meeting face to face. I think it's still I think after the first lockdown and everything, I think people are still accustomed to that. That's what almost what their sort of world is used to now. And I think people have realized it's so easy to do everything remotely that it doesn't, for a lot of people, doesn't make sense to do it face to face. It's just easier to just do it over the phone, etc. So my process have changed, because prior to that, everything was face to face for me, and it would have been still, like, if that hadn't happened, everything would have been face to face still. It was sort of, it wasn't really heard of, doing like it. Banks did it, but we never did it. And then now it's just become the norm. Like for me, it's just like I'm actually surprised when someone asks me for a face-to-face appointment, because it's just so unheard of.
Is it like a bit of a pain now, even though you would probably prefer to do that?
It's
travel somewhere.
It's more, it's more of a shock. It's it's quite like trying to find a way of describing it. It's like it's almost like, like when you've got like a bag of crisps and you think they've all gone and you find like one more. It's like, oh, like it's like a pleasant surprise when someone's like, oh, so you want to meet face to face. Yeah, it's for me, it's fine. It's sometimes it's actually easier face to face, because
look, I was going to say, what's the trade-off for you? Because obviously, like in terms of productivity, you can get in more Zoom calls or whatever.
Exactly. Yeah.
And that's easier, but they are exhausting as well.
Yeah.
And also, you emphasize that you were in this role for people, and it's like,
that's it.
You obviously want to meet the people.
That's right. Yeah, I do miss doing all face to face, because like you said, you do meet people. But it's interesting. Like I think I've almost become used to the phone side of it now. Like as that's how you socialize through work with people, like through the phone. But it is easier. Like you say, productivity wise, you can do more phone appointments. You just can fit more people in. But from like the perspective of sometimes maybe explaining things to a client, or just having like visual aids, because sometimes people, if they're doing a phone appointment as opposed to like a Zoom call, you sometimes can't sort of adequately get across to them.
You lose so much expression and
so I think from the client's point of view, I think maybe if I was to do every single appointment face to face, I think I'd probably get more of a sort of more of a client sort of buy-in than over the phone, because I think everyone now is over the phone mostly, and you want to, well, I especially as I want to explain to people why I'm different, and sometimes over the phone, especially if the person is maybe like, they're in a rush, or they want to get off the phone quickly, it's difficult to put that across. Like for example, and people, I think sometimes they won't take a phone appointment as seriously as face to face.
Yeah.
Which is okay on one side for me, because with the brand that I've got, I want to make mortgage advice more approachable and, user friendly. So that's fine for me. It doesn't have to be formal. But I think when you book a phone appointment with someone, for example, I had somebody the other day, they were, I think, about 20 minutes late, and they could only give me about 10 minutes. You can't do a proper point in that time. So all you can do really is try and explain to them how you're different in sort of 5 minutes, and then try and rearrange another appointment with them. So sometimes it can be a difficulty, because before you actually get on the phone with the client, there's that sort of pre image in the head that you just like every other broker they've spoken to. And so, it's a bit of a chore, and sometimes you can find yourself on the back foot a little bit with the time that you've got with the client in that respect. Whereas with face-to-face, I think if someone's booked in at a certain time, it's more difficult it's more awkward, like ringing up and saying, I'm going to turn up late and things like that. So there's two sides to it, really. I think if I was to do every appointment face-to-face, I think I'd probably get more of the sort of personal buy-in from every client, because some clients, when you do a phone appointment with them, they don't have the time you can't spend as much time with them as you would like. Like if
because to them as well, it's just like, oh well, I've got to ring the broker, and it's just another task on their list of things to do.
That's it.
Whereas you're kind of like, no, let's take the time with this and do it right. And
you want to you want to get to know the client as well, because you're going to be working with them. If you do a mortgage fund, you're going to be working with them for a long time. So you want to get to know them, and you want to get on with them and find out about, for me especially, if I'm helping them through the buying process, it's helpful to know a bit about their search and what kind of property they want and things like that. And sometimes on the phone, if they're in a rush or they're going somewhere, they're a bit like, why are you asking me this? And, whereas face to face, you've got that sort of prejudgment that I'm going to be here for, an hour at least, and that kind of thing. Whereas on the phone could sometimes be a little bit like, well, we'll just get this out of the way and over and done with. So you sometimes lose the ability to sort of get across to the client how you're different, or sort of get along with the client to the extent that you'd like to find out a bit more about the search and things like that.
Yeah, and it's one of those weird things, because there's not a fixed price, so it's always like, how much does it cost? Like, how long's a piece of string? And it's that makes it awkward for people. We do like to just have a price. It's like, how much is this going to cost me? I want to know, I want to pay it, and it's done. So that makes it awkward.
I think it's more like there's so many sort of complexities that can come into a case as well. Like, you want to make sure that you get, because what you don't want to do is spend 5-10 minutes on the phone with a client, and then you haven't got the detail that you need. Because you might spend, because sometimes I've had phone calls where the client's been really, really in a rush to get off the phone. I need to get somewhere. They're giving me so maybe 5-10 minutes, and I've tried to take the details that I can. You're not able to really do it in that time. And then I've heard nothing. And out of the blue, like 2-3 months later, you get a text, I found a house. Can you do the mortgage for me?
Yeah.
It's like, well, I can, but we're going to have to do an appointment first, because I need some details. So you just want to make sure that not only for your own purposes that you're giving the right advice, but also that the client has the right advice. So they're not, in that example, they're not going to a property that they either don't know they can afford, or they don't know what the payments are like, things like that. So it's good for them as well to have more time, because it's so complex. You want to make sure they know the kind of property they should be looking at, and that they've got all the information they need as well, because it works both ways. I need information from the client to make sure I advise properly, but the client also needs to know that when they find a property, they are going to be able to buy it, and what the cost is going to be as well. So there's two sides to it. Yeah,
cool. Okay, so I'm going to jump straight into the Brexit question now. So, have you noticed any change? I mean, obviously, you weren't in this business when we
Yeah.
Brexited, but
Yeah.
I mean, has Brexit affected your work in any way that you've noticed?
And I think that there are, if I was going through like the exams and things like that, as of now, the entire syllabus would be different because, as you said, when I was sort of going through it, the effects hadn't come into place yet. I haven't noticed any major changes to sort of the lending environment, and apart from what's happening with sort of lockdown and COVID and things, I haven't noticed Brexit have a massive effect on advice and things like that just yet. They've changed the name of some of the things that we use. Apart from that, I've not had any.
Changed the names on some forms, like scribbled it out.
Basically, yeah.
Number. Yeah.
So that, but apart from that, there's not really been any like major changes. I've not had any, communications that X needs to be done differently. But I think these kind of things take like years to go through and change. So I don't think the full effect of it will be seen for quite a while now, because it's still relatively, I think in the financial services world, especially, it's still relatively sort of fresh. If you were reading like, or the company I used to work at, if you were reading like communications now, there's not been any like major changes come through as a result of it just yet, but everything is still subject to change further down the line. That's the thing. So I think might be a few years. But as I said, if you're going through the exams now, there might be some changes to certain things in there. But there's nothing like day to day that's changed for me really.
You wouldn't be sort of dealing with like overseas buyers or anything anyway, would you say? I mean, like that's the only thing I could maybe imagine that changing in.
Yeah, I think the main thing that that has changed, because I have quite a few clients who are from like EU nationalities, like maybe like Poland, places like that. And one of the changes is how lenders deal with clients who have got like settled or pre-settled status. I remember this is actually probably the only major change I've noticed when Brexit sort of was first sort of going through, and there was a lot of sort of worry about what would happen to, mortgage clients who were wanting to buy, and they were not British nationals, but lived in the UK. And a lot of lenders for a certain amount of time wanted every client to have settled status, which is essentially like indefinite leave to remain, etc., as opposed to pre-settled. Whereas prior to that, it was a lot easier if you were sort of pre-settled. Whereas now I think more lenders are leaning towards like, as long as you've got pre-settled status, it's okay. So that was a change, but again, nothing major apart from that. But yeah, overseas clients, I personally wouldn't deal with. I just deal with UK clients, and the bulk of that are all in Leeds.
There's probably another exam to do for overseas anyway.
I would imagine, yeah. I vowed never to do another exam after the last one. Apart from the ones I have to do every quarter, I vowed after walking out of the last one that I would never do one again.
But the plus side is, like, in the work that you're in, like you say, you are getting constantly updated and trained. Yeah. So you are sort of constantly keeping your skills fresh and
that's it,
up to date. Random question to throw in here. Like, how long do you see yourself doing this for then? Do you think this is like, I'm going to do this now, this is my career? Or do you see yourself sort of developing this business up and then maybe offering other services or taking it in different directions?
I think this is the thing. I think this is probably it. Like I always, like I said, to do like other areas of financial advice, which is an option that I did think about. You have to do more exams and study, and I really after the after the last one, I really didn't want to do it anymore. I think I would like to just specialize in mortgages. I'm not really interested in going down the full financial advice route or the like equity release and things like that. I just know mortgages, and I think if you know one thing and you're really good at it, and you concentrate on that, I think that's better, in my opinion, than spreading myself too thin over lots of different areas of advice. Because with mortgages, because as I said, lender criteria varies like from lender to lender. I deal with cases, day to day. Some of them are complex, some of them are simple, and I've been doing it for, I think this is like, this will be like the 5th year now of doing mortgage advice. So it's not often I get a client sat in front of me where they'll talk me through their case and I'll be like, right, we can use XYZ lender. I know exactly what I can place you with. And I think that's better for the client as well than me taking time away out of mortgage advice and doing other areas of advice. And then a client sat in front of me and I've forgotten where I can place them. I think I'd rather focus on just that and know that inside out than try and do other things. Although saying that, I wouldn't be adverse to in future going into the areas of advice, but with someone else who was qualified in that, as opposed to me doing it. I'm fine just concentrating on mortgages. I like being able to sort of know that and what lenders will do and things like that. But I wouldn't be adverse to going down that route with somebody else that I could take on and they could deal with that. But apart from that, I don't see myself becoming an actor anytime soon, or selling someone a praline latte again. So I think this is probably it. Yeah,
we could probably segue quite neatly from that to. I mean, there's an element of performance in sales.
Oh yes,
you with the social media stuff as well. Like you're being a media star. And you create content. You're potentially a filmmaker, and now you're potentially a podcaster.
And when you say it like that, that makes well, there we go. So I've achieved that. I am an actor. After all.
So on the social media question, then, like, I mean, obviously it's like crucial for you, but I mean, do you really do you feel that you see the benefit kind of straight away? Like, how much of your time does social media take up for your work? And like, do you feel that that's like a noticeable increase as opposed to?
It was when I first set up, it was like I had no idea, because all I know is mortgages and that kind of thing. I had no idea what was right and what was wrong with like social media, when I should be posting, how I should be posting, things like that. And also you've got to before I post something, I've got to make sure it's compliant as well. So there's that as well. So you've got to make sure what you're posting is compliant. You're not breaking any rules by posting it. And when I first set up, it was it was really, really, that was probably more stressful than actually giving the advice, like trying to work out what to do on like social media and things like that. Because even like personally, I'm not very good with Instagram and things like that. And I wasn't really active on like LinkedIn and, Facebook. I don't Facebook and stuff like that. I didn't really use it like massively. So it was like trying to learn, that was something else to learn. Like, so when I first set up doing all that alongside doing the mortgage stuff was quite difficult, because that in itself is quite time consuming, because it's like thinking about what to post, making sure that it's actually okay to post, working out when to post it, how often to post it. Because I don't want to annoy people either. Like, I've got my friends and family on there. I don't want them seeing, constant like mortgage stuff. And also setting up like the different business pages. That's a bit of a like logistical nightmare in itself sometimes. Because like, just all the different pages and things like that, linking them all to the website.
Branding consistency and like I'm being visually consistent across all of that.
Exactly. But well, I wasn't either until recent. Like, because and also I had a really good. There's the guy that did all my branding and like the design and stuff. He's really, really good. And but because you've got to, or when I first started, I thought I've got to post quite often. A lot of the stuff that I was doing, I was just trying to do myself. And it just, a lot of the early stuff doesn't look very good. I've got rid of some of it now because just doesn't, like you say, doesn't fit in with like the brand. The early stuff doesn't fit in. So probably up until like January time, I was just doing it all myself, and it was quite it was quite time consuming, stressful. But then in January, I think it was January, February time, I booked on a course with a lady who did like specialized in like social media marketing for financial advisors and things like that. And she went through like a boot camp with me on how to, you know, like improve it and what to do and things like that, and how to make sure the brand was consistent. And that was really helpful because it gave me ideas on what to do. And then I met a lady at a networking event recently who does content for social media. So basically what she will do now is we'll have a meeting like once a month, and I'll give basically like we'll brainstorm maybe like questions that I've been asked, or issues that I've had with, you know, cases in the month and things like that. And then she does like a diary for me month to month of like when to post certain things and like how to post it and things like that. And that makes life so much easier, because for me it's just easier having a guide there of this is as opposed to me thinking on a certain day, oh, what am I supposed to do today? I've got something that I can refer to and think, actually, right, that's what I'm posting today and this is why, and that kind of thing. So for me it's a lot easier. So now I've got someone that I work with who helps me with that, and that's taken a massive weight off my shoulders, because then you know that it's being done properly, because I'm not as I said, I'm not a marketing expert. I'm just a mortgage advisor.
I'm not a graphic designer. I'm
definitely not. 100% none of those things. I was really lucky actually, because my I do a lot of videos for for the Facebook page and things like that. And my cousin actually films them, but he films for like Sky Sports and things like that.
Yeah.
So luckily for me, I had a professional on hand, because that could have turned out so badly. Trying to film something myself, or, you know, like on a handheld camera or whatever, but it's gone a lot better. Luckily.
It's good to know people.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I think it's, you know, the content planning has really helped me recently. Just free up time and just relax about like what to post and when to post it. It just makes things so much easier. Yeah.
That's cool. Okay, so I'm going to go into the UBI question now. Basically, the question is, if we had a universal basic income, would you still work? Would you still be doing this job?
Do you know, that's a really difficult question actually, because I don't know. It's if we just had one income and you didn't have to work and you just got that income, I think, do you know what? Actually, I think I would, because you know, it is stressful, but I do enjoy it. So I think it's for me, it's nice to, you know, to be able to help people into a house. I think I would still do it. Yeah. Although it would be tempting to just not. But then the thing is, when I was on furlough and I wasn't working, you know, I was sort of at a loose end. Like, what do I do with all this time? And I think that would be the case. I think I would have to do something.
What did you do with all the spare time? Was it just Netflix and chill, or were you just staring at the ball going, when does this end?
I'm a big fan of sleep. I spent a lot of time in bed.
Probably catching up after all those sports nowadays.
The thing is, like, when I look back now, I don't actually remember what I did. I bought 1,001 movies to see before you die, 1,001 books to read before you die, and 1,001 songs to listen to before you die. And I made it through maybe 2 pages of the films, and that was it. Books I don't think has been opened. Neither is the songs actually. They're both just the placeholders now on my shelf. But yeah, I don't remember what I did. I don't think I did that much. There wasn't that much to do, but I didn't even go for like walks or anything like that. I went for a jog outside, and, you know, when you were allowed, but I didn't do that much. I think it was just like because there was no like there was no need to like get up. You know, there was no sort of motivation behind it. So I think I'd probably be in the same position. Like I'd want to have something to, you know, get up and sort of do and occupy my time. If I won, you know, if I won the lottery tomorrow, I'd probably do like still do something, you know, probably still do this part time.
It'd be really interesting to see what you know, like you could do within the industry, you know, like if you didn't have to have those limitations, like, I don't know, there's lots of interesting opportunities there. Right. So what questions have we not done? Climate change. So, like, so I use climate change as well to kind of represent the kind of broader green agenda. Like with your sort of work, I mean, obviously you're not traveling as much to places to meet clients and so on, but like, is there anything that you can do? Is it anything that's like, is it on your radar at all? Is it something that you can do anything about? Or
funnily enough, actually, one of the things that I wanted to do, like on my LinkedIn, for example, you can see, you know, what there's that section where it's like talks about and that kind of thing. I've got eco-friendly in there because what I was wanting to do was when I get a client who has completed and moves into a house, what I'm wanting to start doing is like sending like a box of just like a little gift box, but with a lot of like eco-friendly products in there. Like there was certain things that I saw, like brushes that are made out of like sustainable materials and just like things a little bit less outside the norm. And I was also thinking about like for every client that has moved in, like maybe like, you know, planting a tree or, you know, something to, because a lot of the work that I do, like it is from home. Like there's no, you know, and there's no everything's digital now. So there's not a lot that I do that is
you don't need bits of machinery, you don't need logistics, you don't need anything sort of like massive. I mean, like how much do you get in terms of deliveries? Is it printer ink and
printer ink, and even then it's not often. It's but I think for me it is on the radar. I'd like to do something like that, but I haven't, because it's still early stages. I haven't decided exactly what I want. I want it to be maybe involved in like the boxes that I'd send, because then you raising awareness as well as, you know, being part of it. You sort of raising awareness as well, which I think is important. And also that, you know, the other side of it, like planting a tree and things like that, I think is, you know, important, just because again, it's raising awareness and you're also doing something that's helpful. It's just when you first set up, there's so many things to set up that it just takes a long time till you can actually get anything like going. But I'm at a point now where like I want to start doing something more you know, sort of more productive and that kind of thing. I think it's important, especially when you're a small business, and when you like when you go to like networking and things like that, if you're doing something like that, it's good to, you know, share that with other like local you know, local businesses and things like that, because then if everyone starts doing one sort of smaller thing, it can amount to a sort of larger thing. Because like big businesses, you can't really, you know, as a small business, you can't really affect anything like that. But if you're doing something, sometimes, you know, you meet somebody else and you're like, oh, well, you know, I do this when a client moves in. Sometimes like, oh, that's a good idea. And then they might start doing it. Sometimes it can just pick up from there. So I think it's a good thing for maybe like smaller businesses to do, like just like one little thing, because it can help.
The best thing in terms of small businesses, depending on what the business is, but a business like yours is like that it's place, it's being in a place, you know, it's like people can come and sort of deal with you directly, and it's, you know, that the money's staying in the city and it's not going out to a big conglomerate.
That's it.
So you know, there's immediate benefits there as well. Like I spoke to Toby Green from My Carbon. Have you come across My Carbon at all?
No, not yet.
So they like sorry if I've got the name of your company wrong, Toby. I'll double check it for later. But yeah, they do sort of net zero certifications and like
Oh, okay.
collections and
Yeah.
stuff. So there's things like that happening, and like as well. Like I like your idea of sort of, it's like a kind of courtesy gift package of like brushes and stuff. The kind of stuff that you want when you arrive moving into somewhere that you sort of don't have. But yeah, you could put in stuff of like, if you know that the house is not particularly well insulated, it's like, here's an insulator, here's,
just to help.
Yeah. So, and that could become a real, that could turn into something that's really beneficial for people of just like, oh, here's a bunch of, actually useful things for me.
Yeah. That's it. Exactly. Yeah. Especially when you first move in and everything's up in the air when your boxes everywhere and stuff. Yeah. So it's just sometimes helpful, but if it's, helping something else as well, then it's good.
Maybe you could leave them a couple of like milk crates as well, because that's the traditional sort of moving in with no furniture sitting on. Here's your complimentary milk crates.
That's it.
They're all reclaimed from landfill,
sustainable.
Yeah. I am curious to know sort of in terms of, so are you mostly from home, working from home now?
Yeah, I'll mainly work from home, do home visits for clients. Sometimes it's nice, like, going to a cafe or something to work from, but mainly based from home. Yeah.
Do you ever do any co-working, anything like that? Have you...
Oh, I've looked into that actually. I went to visit a co-working space recently. I think that's a really good idea. But the problem for me is because I do so little face-to-face appointments, and the ones that I do can be done at the client's house. For me, there's not the sort of need there to and I'm okay sort of working from home. I don't mind it. I do like to get out and like go outside and like walk around or go work from like a cafe or something. But a lot of the co-work spaces that I've seen are in the centre, and I'm in Headingley, so
and your clients are probably in Headingley as well.
Yeah, Headingley or surround North Leeds area. So for me, it's easy to just like take the laptop, go sit somewhere in Headingley, and that's it. To take a whole day and go into the centre, and there wouldn't be that enough demand for it. Clients wanting to sit down face to face. If I had a whole day where there were clients who were needing to go through maybe document signing or things like that, then it would be. But a lot of the time it's just sporadic as opposed to all at the same time. But I did go visit, and they are quite nice. There was one in particular I wanted to look at, which I quite liked, near the train station. But it just wouldn't work for me at the moment, unfortunately.
Is that platform?
It was To Work.
To Work, right?
Yeah.
That's sort of round the back entrance near
Bank of England. Yeah.
So do you like within your home? Do you have a space to work? Have you got an office space, or is it just like kitchen table or wherever? Are you just on your lap or
wherever? I've moved. I have. I don't really know why. There's a corner in my room that I'm changing into a sort of walk-in office, but not like a walk-in wardrobe, but a walk-in office space. Because I have I usually put my chair next to. I've got a cabinet which is desk height, so I just use that. But I'm trying to rearrange so that I've got like an actual desk space in what is like the corner of the room. It just makes more sense to have it that way. And also when I'm not sat at the cabinet right now, but when I'm on Zoom calls there, because of where the light is, you can't see me. It's behind me, so you can't see me properly. It looks like I'm trying to disguise myself on Zoom calls. So it's just better to
so like Dr. Claw or something. Yes, I am your mortgage broker. It's just a shadowy silhouette.
Yeah, I did the Blofeld of mortgages.
You can trust me.
That's it. So it doesn't look good. So I'm in the process of moving offices from one corner to the other. Yeah.
So well, I would say to you, like, as someone who's ruined their back from years of sitting in office chairs and stuff, like, don't, like, make sure you sort of do some health and safety checks on yourself.
Right. Yeah.
Don't ruin your eyes. Don't ruin your back.
Yeah. That's a good point, actually. Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm going to throw it over to you. I mean, I'll throw it over to you, but also talk us through the Oscars of mortgages.
Yeah. So I was so in 2020 I was nominated for the British Mortgage Awards in the Rising Star category. So basically what you have to do for that, this was the place I used to work at, you essentially you were nominated pretty much a lot of, if not all, mortgage companies or big corporates in the UK will nominate employees for certain categories. So it's a national thing. So you get nominated. So for each category, a certain number of people will be nominated within each company for that. So I was nominated for Rising Star, and then there's different rounds that you go through. So the first one, you have to get enough votes to get through to the actual final. So that just involves trying to get, clients and co-work and things like that to vote for you to get through, which I did. So I got through to the final after the voting. So I was representing the company in the final in that category. And that's basically what it usually is you go down to London and it's a black tie event, and, there's a guest speaker and things like that. This was in 2020. So it was during, when we weren't allowed to gather. So it was all via Zoom, via video link, basically, when it actually happened. So I think I was nominated in, I think it might have been, I want to say April, May time. And I found out I got through to the final, which was really exciting. And then there was another round where, so there were 3 of us in the final for that category. And you had to write a testimonial about sort of your career so far and achievements and things like that. And then you had to have an interview there were 3 judges from, I think they were from 3 different lenders, big lenders, mainstream ones. And they just asked you a lot of questions on your sort of history as an advisor and motivations and things like that. And that was it. I heard nothing again. And the final kept getting postponed and postponed. So it ended up happening in December that year. So there was nearly a half-year wait for it. And mine was the first category to get announced, and I found out within the first 10 minutes that I'd not been successful.
Good, after all that time,
which after half a year of waiting, and all the work that I'd put in was really disappointing. But
then it ruins the whole rest of the event, doesn't it? Because it's
really
I don't want to watch it.
I have so much respect for at the Oscars where the actors lose in the category and then they sit through the rest of it. It really did ruin the rest of the event. But it was
it's a pleasure just to be nominated.
Exactly. Yes, it is. Yeah, it was a pleasure to be nominated,
and to to be in there and in the running, and you did well still. It wasn't something you campaigned for,
Yeah, it was really nice because to get to the final, you have to get votes from your clients and things like that, and they wouldn't have voted for me if they hated me. So it's it was good to have that effect on because I like to make sure that when I deal with a client, it's that they're happy and they're not that they get the best service that they can. And I think the fact that they all voted for me and I managed to get through to the final, it shows that they were happy with it, and they they took the time out to do that. So I was really, really happy. I would have been happier if I won, of course, but what can you what can you do? But
go and threaten some judges next time, or
exactly,
or cheat the ballot.
Funnily enough, I got nominated again for the same category last year, but I left the company last year, so I was withdrawn. I was voluntarily withdrawn from the running. But it would have. I think to lose it 2 years in a row would have been too much to bear. I think.
Would have been good thing, So Yeah. Do you want to hand out socials and stuff? Where can people find you?
Yeah, so basically, you'll find Sett Mortgages on Facebook and Instagram. It's just at Sett Mortgages. And then I'm on LinkedIn personally as Elliot Benson, and that's I do some newsletters on there. So if if you were interested in the lending environment at the moment and just tips and things like that, I do monthly newsletters on there. But there's a lot of tips and things like that on Facebook and Instagram videos as well, which are quite helpful if you're looking to buy, or if you're self-employed, or anything like that. There's things on there that you'll find helpful.
Thank you again to Elliot for being my guest. Thanks again to all my guests, and thanks to you, Leeds, for being my subject. And of course, most of all, thank you to you, my dear listener. Please come back next week and hear me speak to a man who works with borrowers. Okay, that's me. Cheers, ears. Take care out there and be kind to each other, Leeds. If you're listening to this, I assume you have some connection to Leeds, like living here or being from here. If you're such a person in Leeds or from Leeds and you haven't done your recording for working hours yet, then don't wait. Email me now, right now. Quick, get a pen. workinghoursPod@western-studios.com. If you fancy being my guest, put guest in the subject line of your email and add a short bio in the message. Stick in some suggestions of your availability and I'll send you a release form and a Zoom invite. If you'd like to be on working hours, I will need a 2-hour window for us to record in. I can record in your work time or during your downtime. I have been recording interviews for working hours for over a year on Zoom, but I can also record offline. You can appear on working hours anonymously, or you can promote yourself and or your company or brand. Cleaner or owner, what is your experience? How do you feel about work? What do you like and not like? What do you do, Leeds? Be a part of local history, have your voice heard, share your wisdom, give us the inside skinny. This is your show, Leeds, and it's all about what you make of yourself. Do you know what you're doing? If you do, then come and tell me all about it. Come on working hours, even if you don't know what you're doing. I certainly don't. Email me right now. Quick, get a pen. workinghoursPod@western-studios.com. If you're allowed to do that, that is. If you're not allowed to do that, then tell me why. If you and your business aren't ashamed of what you do, then let's hear all about it. What good are you doing the rest of us? Are you socially useful? Am I? Is this? Send your feedback, questions, comments, and queries right now to workinghoursPod@western-studios.com. What is happening, Leeds? Find out by following this show on Twitter @WorkingHours3 and on Instagram @WorkingHoursPodLeeds to find out when new episodes are going to be released, or just use the hashtag #WorkingHoursPodLeeds on either of those sites to find me. I'm on Facebook, facebook.com/Western_Studios_Leeds. I'm also on LinkedIn, linkedin.com/IN/Simon-Treen. Treen is TREEN. Or you can go to my company page, which is linkedin.com/company/Western-Studios. If you want to make a podcast in Leeds, whether it's for a cause, a publicity campaign, a product promotion, or your own passion project, then get in touch with me. Western Studios for support, advice, and guidance on anything podcasts. At Western Studios, you work with a real life lawyer who is actually in Leeds, who you can actually work with on making podcast content. So don't wade through articles and videos and podcasts about how to make podcasts. Just get on with it. Western Studios can make your podcast with you or even for you. Western Studios can take on your podcast's boring, time-consuming, and painful admin, recording, editing, transcription, whatever. Tell me about it. I feel your pain. For a charge, I'll share it. Writers, what are you doing with your lives? Hopefully you're writing. Well, I know there are listeners out there who want to hear great original writing performed as audio content and made in Leeds. How do I know this? Because I'm one of them. Help me make Muck for Brass, a series of short stories, poems, performers, whatever, all published as podcast content. Is your work arty, salacious, pulpy, strange? Good. I want to make it a podcast. I get practice making the show, and you get a finished, performed, and published version of your writing. Businesses, campaigns, brands, got an inkling that you'd like a podcast but don't know where to start? Hit me up at makemypodcast@western-studios.com and we'll start making your podcast straight away. The first hour of arranged consultation and pre-production time is free. So what do you have to lose? And what are you waiting for? Save yourself the hassle and the headache and make your podcast with a Leeds-based, in real life podcast producer. That's me, Western Studios Leeds. Once again, please let Working Hours get big and strong by joining its Patreon. Support Working Hours by becoming a champion on Patreon for £1 a month. You can inspire me and motivate me with a membership and maybe one day even be helping to cover all my costs. You can chat to me there and see me do a monthly live stream where, again, you can chat to me all about the show and, God, do I need to find someone to actively share this project with? Go to patreon.com/Working Hours Pod right now and sign up, please. And or go to Ko-fi, that's ko-fi.com/Working Hours and join me there for £1 a month and get access to the Working Hours Discord and chat to me there. I will be putting up additional material on Ko-fi once there are any members there. Please do remember to like, share, follow, and subscribe to this show. Every little bit helps. Tell your gran, tell your housekeeper, tell your gardener, tell your parole officer, tell your boss, tell Leeds, and I'll see thee next time, our kid. Working Hours is presented, edited, and recorded by Simon Treem for Western Studios Leeds Limited. The music was The Bees from Chopin's Etudes, which is in the public domain and was taken from museopen.org.